Hello, my name is Joseph White, and I'm a simple farmer from Nebraska. What I'm about to share may sound unbelievable, but it's the truth as I experienced it. Last winter, I had a near-death experience that changed everything for me. It wasn't just an out-of-body moment. It was a journey that opened my eyes to the spiritual truths about life, death, and what's coming in 2025. I was shown things by Jesus that filled me with awe and fear. What I saw wasn't just for me. It's a message for all of us. Let me take you through this incredible journey. It all started on a bitterly cold morning. I remember waking up early to check on the cattle. The frost was biting, and the air smelled of damp earth. I had been feeling under the weather for a while, but being a farmer, I was used to pushing through. That morning, as I bent down to fix a broken fence, I felt an unbearable pain in my chest. My vision blurred, and before I knew it, I was on the ground, unable to move or call for help. Everything went dark, and I thought, this is it. But then something strange happened. I wasn't cold anymore. I wasn't lying on the frozen ground either. I was standing, but not in my body. It was as if I had stepped out of myself, leaving my pain and earthly worries behind. I looked down and saw myself lying there, still as the cattle milled around. I felt no fear, no regret, just a deep calm, like being wrapped in a warm blanket of peace. Suddenly, I noticed a light in the distance. It wasn't the harsh glare of the sun or the soft glow of a lantern. This light was alive, pulsating with love and warmth. It drew me in, and I felt my spirit being pulled toward it. I couldn't resist, nor did I want to. As I moved closer, the world around me faded, replaced by a vast expanse of golden light. Crossing that veil felt like stepping into a realm where time didn't exist, and everything was perfect. As I stood there, I began to hear whispers, not the kind you hear with your ears, but with your soul. These whispers spoke of love, hope, and forgiveness. It was as if every truth I had ever searched for was being poured into me. I didn't know what was waiting on the other side of the light, but I knew it was something extraordinary. And then I saw him. Out of the golden light, a figure emerged. He wasn't like the paintings or statues I'd seen in church. His presence was overwhelming, yet comforting, majestic, yet humble. It was Jesus. I knew it was him, not because of how he looked, but because of the love that radiated from him. It was a love so pure and powerful that it brought me to my knees, not out of fear, but out of reverence. He spoke my name, Joseph. His voice wasn't loud, but it filled the entire space, resonating in every part of me. It wasn't just a sound, it was a feeling, a knowing. He reached out his hand, and as I took it, a flood of emotions washed over me. I felt every mistake, every hurt, and every regret, but instead of judgment, I felt forgiveness. Jesus told me that my time on earth wasn't over yet, but before I returned, there were things he needed to show me. Joseph, he said, what you see now is not to frighten you, but to prepare you. Share this with others, for they need to know what's coming. With that, he led me deeper into the light. The first vision Jesus showed me was of the United States. It wasn't the country I knew. The land looked the same, the mountains, rivers, and plains, but the people were different. There was a heaviness, a tension that hung in the air. I saw cities where people walked like strangers, isolated even among crowds. There was a sense of fear, as if everyone was waiting for something to happen. Jesus showed me the cracks forming in the nation. Not physical cracks, but spiritual ones. Families were divided, communities were fractured, and trust was eroding. It was as if the soul of the nation was under attack. But amidst the darkness, I saw pockets of light. People coming together, holding hands, and praying. These were the ones who still believed in love, hope, and the power of faith. Jesus explained that 2025 would be a year of reckoning, a time when people would be forced to confront their choices. It wouldn't be easy, but it was necessary. He said, "Joseph, tell them not to fear. Tell them to hold on to their faith, for it will be their anchor in the storm." The next thing Jesus showed me was the danger of division. He said, "A house divided cannot stand." I saw images of people arguing over politics, religion, and even small, trivial things. The divisions weren't just in opinions, they were in hearts. People had stopped seeing each other as brothers and sisters and started seeing enemies. Jesus told me that these divisions were a tool of the enemy, a way to keep people from uniting in love and faith. But he also showed me the power of unity. In one vision, I saw a small town where people of all backgrounds came together during a disaster. They didn't care about their differences, they only cared about helping one another. That unity created a light so bright, it pushed back the darkness. "Joseph," he said, "tell them to choose love over hate, unity over division, for only together can they withstand what is to come." In another vision, I saw the earth itself crying out. There were hurricanes, earthquakes, and wildfires, not random events, but signs of a planet out of balance. I saw cities submerged in water, forests consumed by flames, and people running in fear. It was terrifying, but Jesus stood beside me, calm and steady. "These are not punishments," he said, "but wake-up calls." He explained that the natural world reflects the state of our spirits. When we are out of harmony, so is the earth. But he also showed me that healing was possible. In one image, I saw people planting trees, cleaning rivers, and caring for the land. Their efforts brought life back to barren places. "Joseph," he said, "tell them to care for the earth as I care for them. For the earth is a gift, and its healing is tied to their own." The next vision Jesus showed me was of the economy, but it wasn't just about money, it was about values. I saw bustling cities, skyscrapers, and trading floors full of energy and noise. But then cracks began to form. Literal cracks in the buildings, symbolic of something deeper. People were panicking, watching their wealth evaporate as the financial systems they trusted collapsed. It wasn't a single event. It was gradual, like a dam breaking bit by bit. Families struggled to make ends meet, and businesses shuttered their doors. Yet amidst the chaos, Jesus showed me something remarkable: a rebirth. New systems began to rise, ones based not on greed, but on fairness and compassion. I saw people bartering goods, communities pooling resources, and individuals helping each other without expecting anything in return. Jesus said, "The old ways will crumble because they are built on sand. What rises next must be built on rock, on truth, love, and fairness." He explained that the economic challenges of 2025 would test humanity's priorities. Would we cling to the past, or would we embrace a future rooted in kindness and mutual respect? "Tell them, Joseph," he said, "that abundance comes not from hoarding, but from sharing." As we moved through the light, Jesus showed me another vision. It was of people glowing, not physically, but spiritually. These were the chosen, individuals who had awakened to a higher purpose. They weren't necessarily wealthy or famous. They were ordinary people with extraordinary faith. I saw them in every corner of the United States. Teachers, farmers, doctors, students, each shining their light in the darkness. These chosen ones were not perfect. They had their struggles, but they had something others lacked, a deep connection to God. They prayed, meditated, and lived with intention. Their actions inspired others to seek the same peace and clarity. Jesus explained that the chosen's role in 2025 would be crucial. They will guide others through the storm, he said. Their faith will be the anchor for many. He showed me gatherings where people shared their stories of awakening, helping each other grow spiritually. These gatherings weren't confined to churches. They happened in homes, parks, and even online. Joseph, he said, tell them that every soul can be chosen if they open their hearts. The next vision was one I didn't expect. Jesus showed me a world increasingly dominated by technology. There were machines that could think, robots performing tasks once done by humans, and screens everywhere. At first, it seemed like a marvel of progress. People were connected in ways I'd never imagined, and tasks became easier and faster. But then, Jesus showed me the darker side. I saw people becoming slaves to their devices, losing touch with the real world and each other. There were debates about ethics, whether machines should replace humans, whether artificial intelligence could make decisions about life and death. It was clear that technology itself wasn't the problem, it was how we used it. Joseph, Jesus said, technology is a gift, but it can also be a trap. Tell them to use it wisely, to uplift and not destroy. He showed me examples of technology being used for good, robots aiding the disabled, apps teaching kindness, and virtual spaces fostering genuine community. The future depends on how they choose to wield their tools, he said. As a farmer, I've always believed in planting seeds for the future. Jesus showed me that in 2025, the youth would be those seeds. He took me to a vision of classrooms and playgrounds where children and young adults were filled with energy, creativity, and determination. They weren't weighed down by the fears of the older generations. They saw challenges as opportunities. But there was also a warning. Jesus showed me how the youth were being influenced, both positively and negatively, by the world around them. Social media, peer pressure, and a lack of guidance were leading some down harmful paths. Yet, he also showed me young leaders rising up, speaking truth and inspiring change. Joseph, he said, the youth are the hope of tomorrow. Nurture them, guide them, and believe in their potential. I saw communities creating programs to mentor young people, teaching them values of compassion, responsibility, and resilience. Tell them, Jesus continued, that the strength of the nation lies in the hands of its children. The next vision was of the earth itself. Jesus showed me forests stripped bare, oceans polluted, and skies choked with smog. It was heartbreaking to see the beauty of creation being destroyed. But then, he showed me something even more powerful: the Earth's resilience. I saw rivers running clear again, trees growing where there had been wastelands, and animals returning to their habitats. This healing wasn't automatic. It was the result of human action. People began to understand that caring for the planet wasn't optional, it was essential. Farmers switched to sustainable methods, cities implemented green technologies, and individuals made small changes that added up to big results. Jesus said, "Joseph, the earth is my gift to them, but they must cherish it. Tell them that healing the planet begins with healing their hearts." He showed me how acts of kindness, planting a tree, cleaning up a beach, or even reducing waste, had ripple effects that reached far beyond the physical. As I stood in awe of this vision, Jesus added, "Joseph, tell them that when they heal the earth, they heal themselves." It was a powerful reminder that our connection to nature is a reflection of our connection to God and each other. As I walked further with Jesus, he showed me a troubling vision. There were people standing on platforms, preaching to large crowds, their voices confident and persuasive. At first glance, they seemed like spiritual leaders, guiding others toward the light. But Jesus placed his hand on my shoulder and said, "Look closer, Joseph." When I looked again, I saw a different picture. These leaders weren't spreading truth, they were sowing confusion. Their words were coated with half-truths and manipulations, designed to control rather than inspire. The crowds, desperate for hope, followed blindly, unaware they were being led astray. Jesus said, "False prophets will rise, Joseph. They will wear the mask of faith, but work against it." He showed me how these false prophets would exploit people's fears, using the challenges of 2025 to build their influence. Yet, there were ways to discern their true intentions. Jesus explained, "Their actions, not their words, reveal their hearts. Tell them to watch for humility, compassion, and truth. Those who serve my name serve others, not themselves." In another scene, I saw individuals standing firm against these deceptions. They prayed for clarity, sought wisdom, and turned to Scripture for guidance. Jesus said, "Joseph, faith is the armor they need. With it, they will see through the lies." He emphasized the importance of personal connection with God, urging people to trust their inner discernment rather than blindly following anyone who claims authority. "Share this with them, Joseph," he said, "for the truth will always outshine the false." The next vision filled me with hope. Jesus showed me scenes of hardship, people losing homes to floods, families struggling with illness, and entire towns grappling with scarcity. But amidst these trials, something beautiful emerged: compassion. I saw neighbors helping neighbors, strangers opening their doors to those in need, and communities coming together like never before. One image stood out. A woman who had lost everything in a storm was embraced by her neighbors. They shared food, built her a temporary shelter, and stayed by her side until she was back on her feet. Jesus said, "Joseph, this is the power of compassion. It is what binds humanity together." He explained that the challenges of 2025 would test people's ability to care for one another. "Tell them, Joseph, that resilience is not found in isolation, but in unity." He showed me small acts of kindness: a man repairing a stranger's fence, a child sharing their last piece of bread, that created ripples of hope. Jesus emphasized the importance of fostering community. When they work together, they create light in the darkest times. Tell them to hold each other up, for no one can face the storms of life alone. He also warned against selfishness, saying, "Those who turn inward, hoarding for themselves, will find only emptiness, but those who give freely will never lack." In the next vision, Jesus showed me a room filled with light. In the center were people kneeling in prayer, their eyes closed, their hands clasped. Surrounding them was a sense of peace, so profound it seemed to vibrate through the air. Jesus turned to me and said, "Joseph, this is where true strength lies." He explained that prayer and meditation are not just rituals, but lifelines connecting people to God. Tell them, Joseph, that through prayer, they open their hearts to my guidance. In meditation, they hear my voice. He showed me people who had lost everything, finding solace and direction through these practices. Their circumstances hadn't changed, but their spirits had. They were calm, hopeful, and resilient. Jesus also revealed the transformative power of collective prayer. I saw communities gathering in parks, homes, and even online, lifting their voices together. The light surrounding them grew brighter with every word, pushing back the darkness. When they pray together, Jesus said, they multiply their strength. Tell them that prayer is not just for asking, but for listening, for aligning their will with mine. He also encouraged meditation, saying, "In the stillness, they will find clarity. The noise of the world drowns out my whispers, but in silence, they will hear me." He urged people to create daily practices of prayer and meditation, even if only for a few minutes. Joseph, tell them, this is how they prepare their souls for what is to come. The next vision was subtle, but powerful. Jesus showed me people going about their daily lives, yet they were surrounded by signs and synchronicities. A woman grieving her lost husband found a white feather on her windowsill, just as she prayed for a sign that he was at peace. A man struggling with doubt saw a rainbow appear during a storm, reminding him of God's promises. Jesus explained, "Joseph, I am always speaking to them, but many do not listen." These signs are my way of reaching their hearts. He showed me numbers appearing repeatedly, 111, 444, 777, and objects like coins and birds acting as messengers. Tell them to pay attention, Joseph. These signs are not coincidences, but conversations. He also revealed that synchronicities would increase in 2025 as more people sought spiritual connection. The veil between worlds is thin, Joseph. They must trust their intuition, for it is through their hearts that I speak. Jesus encouraged people to keep journals, recording the signs they receive and reflecting on their meaning. When they acknowledge my signs, they strengthen their faith. In the final vision of this series, Jesus showed me a man burdened by guilt. He carried a heavy sack on his back, filled with stones representing every mistake he'd ever made. His shoulders sagged, and his steps were slow. Jesus walked up to him and gently touched the sack. It disappeared, and the man stood tall, his face filled with relief. Jesus said, "Joseph, forgiveness is the greatest gift they can give themselves and others. Tell them to let go of the past, for it weighs them down." He showed me people reconciling, parents embracing estranged children, friends apologizing after years of silence, and even individuals forgiving themselves. Forgiveness is not forgetting, Jesus said, but releasing. It is not weakness, but strength. He explained that forgiveness heals not only relationships, but also the soul. When they forgive, they open their hearts to love and peace. Jesus urged me to share this message, saying, "Joseph, tell them that forgiveness is the key to freedom. They cannot change the past, but through forgiveness, they can transform their future." As I watched the vision, I felt my own burdens lift, understanding that forgiveness is a gift we all have the power to give. Jesus showed me a vision of the United States as it could be, not the divided, struggling nation I had seen earlier, but a shining example of what humanity could achieve. He said, "Joseph, this country was built on principles of freedom, hope, and faith. It has the potential to be a light for the world." In the vision, I saw Americans coming together, united by their shared values rather than torn apart by their differences. Communities worked side by side to rebuild what had been lost. Faith leaders, regardless of denomination, joined hands in prayer, guiding their flocks with humility and love. This unity inspired other nations to follow suit, creating a ripple effect across the globe. However, Jesus also warned me about the challenges ahead. "Joseph, the United States is at a crossroads. It can lead in compassion and faith, or it can falter in fear and greed." He explained that the country's leadership, both spiritual and political, would play a critical role in determining its path. "Tell them to choose leaders who reflect my teachings, not their own ambitions." Jesus emphasized the importance of individuals taking responsibility. The strength of a nation lies not just in its leaders, but in its people. Tell them to pray for their country, to act with integrity, and to lift one another up. He showed me that the United States could fulfill its destiny as a global beacon of hope, but only if its people embraced faith, unity, and love. In this vision, I saw a storm, a fierce, unrelenting force that seemed to tear through everything in its path. People were frightened, running for shelter, clutching their loved ones. Yet, in the midst of the chaos, there were others who stood firm. These individuals weren't untouched by the storm, but they weren't overwhelmed by it either. They held hands, prayed, and faced the winds together. Jesus said, "Joseph, fear is the greatest weapon of the enemy, but faith is the strongest shield. Tell them not to fear the changes coming in 2025, for these changes are necessary for growth." He explained that fear paralyzes, but faith empowers. When they trust in me, they will find the strength to endure and the courage to act. I saw examples of faith overcoming fear, families rebuilding after disasters, communities sharing resources, and individuals finding peace through prayer. Jesus reminded me that challenges are opportunities for transformation. Tell them, Joseph, that the storms of life are not meant to destroy, but to refine. Through faith, they will find hope even in the darkest moments. He also encouraged people to support one another. Faith is not a solitary journey. Tell them to lean on each other, for where two or more are gathered in my name, I am there. This vision left me with a profound sense of peace, knowing that hope would always triumph over fear. As the visions began to fade, Jesus turned to me and said, "Joseph, your time here is not over. You must return and share what you have seen." I felt a pang of sorrow, not wanting to leave the warmth and peace of his presence, but his words filled me with purpose. In the vision, I saw myself waking up on the cold ground where I had fallen. The pain of my heart attack was gone, replaced by a strange, comforting warmth. My wife Mary was standing over me, tears streaming down her face as she called for help. I knew then that I had been given a second chance, not just to live, but to live with purpose. Jesus said, "Joseph, your story will inspire others. Share it boldly and without fear." He showed me people listening to my testimony, their faces lighting up with hope. Some were skeptical, others unsure, but many were moved to seek their own connection with God. "The truth will resonate in their hearts," he said. "Tell them what you have seen, and trust that I will guide them." As I returned to my body, I felt a deep sense of gratitude, not just for my life, but for the opportunity to share this message. I knew it wouldn't be easy, but I also knew it was my calling. The final vision Jesus gave me was one of preparation. I saw people from all walks of life, farmers, teachers, workers, and leaders, gathering together to discuss how they could face the challenges of 2025. They weren't just talking, they were acting. They planted gardens, built shelters, and prayed together. It was a powerful image of unity and hope. Jesus said, "Joseph, tell them to prepare, not out of fear, but out of faith." Preparation is an act of trust, a way of saying, "We believe in a better tomorrow." He showed me practical steps people could take, saving resources, learning new skills, and building strong communities. But he also emphasized the spiritual preparation. Tell them to strengthen their faith, to pray daily, and to seek my guidance in all they do. He warned against complacency, saying, "The challenges will be great, but so will the rewards. Those who prepare will not only survive, but thrive." He encouraged people to focus on what truly matters: love, faith, and community, rather than material possessions. Joseph, the world's treasures will fade, but the treasures of the Spirit will last forever. In the final moments of my journey, Jesus showed me a vision of the world as it could be. It wasn't perfect, but it was beautiful. People were kinder, more connected, and more in tune with the divine. Families worked together to rebuild their homes, children laughed freely, and communities thrived. The earth, once scarred, was healing, its rivers running clear and its forests lush.